If the main reason you're excited for Surging Sparks is because of all the major changes it brings to older decks, I've got some bad news, it doesn't do that. Charizard EX, Dragapult EX, Gardevoir EX, Ironthorns EX, Regidrago V-Star, and many others all remain largely unchanged with the new set, which comes to Pokemon TCG Live on Thursday, November 7th. While certain decks like Miraidon EX and Gholdengo EX do receive helpful upgrades, as you can see from the Surging Sparks tier list in Japan, the meta isn't going to be all that different. To quickly go over the decks that don't get much, you could add a copy of Terra Orb and maybe Precious Trolley to Charizard and Dragapult. Terra Orb gets any Terra Pokemon for free, while Precious Trolley is Arven searchable and can immediately put 5 basic Pokemon onto your bench. Sure, they're helpful, I just don't know if you want to swap out Prime Catcher or Sparkling Crystal or Unfair Stamp for Precious Trolley, especially when Buddy Puffin can pretty much get what you need turn 1 anyways. Shenpao gets absolutely nothing, same with Lugia V-Star, while Gardevoir EX could add a single copy of Lively Stadium to boost the hit points of Drifloon and Streamtail. But at the end of the day, Bravery Charm and Monkey Dory already get you where you need to go. And I guess Iron Thorns could use Lively Stadium as well, but Lost City is still the better option until it rotates in March. If you do go for Lively Stadium with Iron Thorns, a copy of Clement's Quick Wit isn't the dumbest idea in the world either, healing 60 damage from all of them. Honestly, the more time I spend looking at the Surging Sparks set list, the more disappointed I get. Like, look at Terapagos EX, you could add a copy of Latios EX and that's it. Or throw in a copy of Alolan Exeggutor EX or Gravity Mountain into Regidrago V-Star and barely make it better, if at all. It's just so deflating, like the end of my balloon therapy class. With all that cheery stuff out of the way, let's look at the old decks that actually get better with Surging Sparks, starting with the ones that utilize Brilliant Blender. I hope you stocked up on special shampoo because I'm about to give you crabs again. While the major issue of prizing still exists, Crabominable Kofu gets much better with Surging Sparks. Instead of playing a ton of Pokegear and discard effects, you just throw in Brilliant Blender and the job's practically done for you. It's Arven and Irida searchable, so go get Brilliant Blender turn 1, discard up to 4 Kofu, and you can start attacking for free with Veluza, then for 1 energy with Crabominable. And that's literally the only meaningful change you need to make with Crabominable come Surging Sparks. Take out Secret Box, add in Brilliant Blender, and you're done. Okay, well there's actually a bunch of other changes you need to make, like removing Pokegear and Carmine, but realistically Brilliant Blender's all you care about. For those curious, the only potential ways around Kofu prizing issues are Arcphone and Daisy's Help, neither of which are particularly amazing. And if for some reason you didn't want to put Brilliant Blender in the deck, swap it out with 4 Call Bell. Yeah, I don't know why you'd do that either. Roaring Moon sees a double whammy of new cards. First is Brilliant Blender, which probably won't be a mainstay as something like Secret Box or Prime Catcher is still better, but the new Koraidon definitely is. For 2 colorless energy, Koraidon does 30 damage. But if one of your ancient Pokemon used an attack during your last turn, that's bumped up to 180 and it hits for fighting weakness. So you can easily deal with Terapagos EX and other fighting weak Pokemon. Brilliant Blender, meanwhile, just isn't good enough. Roaring Moon's damage is only boosted by 50 if you discard 5 ancient cards. But my purpose in life is to please you, so you tap that thumbs up button, so here you go. This list from Japan has 3 Koraidon, 1 Brilliant Blender, and even a copy of Gravity Mountain to lower the hit points of Stage 2 Pokemon by 30, making them easier to KO. Realistically, the best way to play Baby Roaring Moon comes Surging Sparks adds in Koraidon and Gravity Mountain and doesn't bother with Brilliant Blender. You could always add in a double Turbo Energy for Koraidon and Fluttermane if you're feeling spicy, but the deck runs so well already, why ruin a good thing? As for the EX Roaring Moon, it too benefits from a single copy of Koraidon. Additionally, you can add Latios EX, which gives every basic Pokemon free retreat. You still want Pecharunt EX because it's a switch effect and gets around Snorlax, but Latios doesn't force your Pokemon to become poisoned, potentially saving you precious hit points. I also saw Gastrodon and the new Fluttermane in a couple of well-performing Roaring Moon lists. Fluttermane takes all the damage counters off of an ancient Pokemon and moves them to your opponent's active, while Gastrodon can shut off Stage 2 Pokemon abilities, though there are ways around it. For more single prize Brilliant Blender decks, we have United Wings and Dondozo. Dondozo does 50 damage for each Tatsugiri in your discard pile, so use Brilliant Blender to send all of them straight from your deck to the discard. Now you're swinging for either 180 or 200 damage every turn. This Dondozo list from Japan does have a lot of extra bells and whistles, like Gastrodon to potentially shut off Stage 2 abilities, Articuno to boost Dondozo's damage by 10, Palkia to deal bigger damage and maybe let you attack with Radiant Greninja, and Surfer to switch your active Pokemon and draw you up to 5 cards in hand. If you want to build your own list though, just start with 4 Dondozo, 4 Tatsugiri, 4 Double Turbo, at least 1 Heavy Ball and Brilliant Blender, and go from there. Switching to United Wings, swap out Secret Box for Brilliant Blender, and you're done. And this time I mean it. I did cut 1 Collapse Stadium for a Gravity Mountain to help out against Stage 2 decks, but that's more because I was bored and wanted to try something different. You could always increase the Arven count to 4 to increase your chances of finding Brilliant Blender, which is basically an automatic plus 100 damage with the deck, or go for Pokestop as your stadium of choice instead of Gravity Mountain and Collapse Stadium. Unlike when I'm getting tossed around by Lady Beefcake, there's nothing seismic about the changes to old decks with Surging Sparks. Sure, Brilliant Blender helps Crabominable and Miraidon is a nice addition to Roaring Moon, but at their core, they all feel the same. Don't believe me? One of the decks helped out most by the new set is Gholdengo, and even that has just 2 changes. The first is swapping the old 70 hit point Gimme Duel for the new one. Yeah, it's fun flipping 20 heads on continuous coin toss, but that only ever happened in a dream, and when you woke up, a Caterpie had used String Shot on you. Just use Minor Errand running, grab 2 energy from the deck, and make Gholdengo marginally stronger. In that same vein, Energy Search Pro can allow you to Gholdengo Sicko mode. Essentially 8 energy searches in one, the new Aspect allows you to grab any number of basic energy of different types from your deck. While I'm not completely convinced that it's better than Hyper Aroma, Energy Search Pro does allow you to potentially get 400 damage worth of energy with a single item card. Because of Energy Search Pro, the list looks a little different after Surging Sparks. You play 8 different types of energy plus that new Gimme Duel. On top of that, I did add in a 1/1 Togekiss line. If your opponent's active Pokemon is knocked out for whatever reason, you flip a coin. If it's heads, you take an extra prize card. So now you can win with as few as 2 knockouts, you just have to be lucky. Other options for Gholdengo include Gravity Mountain to make KOing Stage 2s easier, Gastrodon to further annoy Stage 2 decks, Dust Noir to soften targets up and put your opponent on odd prizes, Cyrano to get 3 Gholdengo from your deck, and I even saw a list using Meowstic with Chill Teaser Toy for Gust, but only the craziest among you should actually try that. The only other deck with a noticeable improvement from Surging Sparks is Miraidon EX. That's thanks to Magneton, Pikachu EX, Latios EX, and Lively Stadium, with Rotom an option for the truly evil among us. Let's start with Magneton, which blows itself up and accelerates up to 3 basic energy from your discard pile to your lightning Pokemon however you want. While you do give up a prize card in the process, that's not necessarily a bad thing, especially in a deck filled with 2 prizers. They still need 3 KOs to win, so you're not helping them out too much. By using Overvolt Discharge, you can instantly power up a Miraidon EX, get Iron Hands EX 1 energy away from an Ampu very much, or just make Raichu V's attack that much better, allowing you to more easily one-shot big targets. Then there's Pikachu EX. If you're going for the Area 0 build of Miraidon, it replaces Mewtwo EX. While a lot of successful lists in Japan completely ignored Topaz Bolt and just used Pikachu for its Terraness and ability that means it survives a one-shot through damage, that's boring. Pair it with Magneton, now you can use Topaz Bolt on Pikachu as Overvolt Discharge allows you to accelerate any basic energy. Looking at the rest of the potential additions, Lively Stadium is great if it sticks, increasing the hit points of all basic Pokemon by 30. But if your opponent bumps it, you get no value. Rotom can be really strong as a 1-of against Stage 2 decks. Use Crushing Pulse, discard every single item and tool card from their hand, potentially removing their rare candies. And Latios EX is perfect for Miraidon, giving every basic Pokemon free retreat. For this first list, you have Magneton, Latios, and Lively Stadium. It's basically a regular Miraidon deck with a few upgrades. Latios means it's easier to put whoever you want in the active while you use Electric Generator to load up a bench Pokemon. And Magneton means discarding energy early is a good thing because you can just accelerate it later. I'll refrain from showing off a boring Pikachu EX Area 0 list and instead give you what you came here for. No, not a foot reveal, a Topaz Bolt Miraidon deck. Unfortunately, you have to sacrifice some of the speed of a typical Miraidon deck to make this work. And Raichu V is arguably better than Pikachu since you don't have to worry about finding grass and metal energy, but we're here now and there's no going back. The strategy with this version remains the same as always, you just also want to prioritize getting the grass and metal energy in the discard pile so you can eventually Magneton them to Pikachu. And the 1 copy of Gravity Mountain will be important, as it allows you to one-shot Charizard EX and Dragapult EX. Before I move on, don't forget that while Topaz Bolt forces you to discard 3 energy, it's any 3 energy. So you can Generator a bunch of Lightning to Pikachu, discard those with Topaz Bolt, survive a hit with its ability, and Topaz Bolt again the following turn. If there weren't like 5 different Gust cards in Standard, Pikachu would be unstoppable. And finally, a couple of decks helped out by Gravity Mountain, Okidogi EX and Tsareena EX. Okidogi's biggest issue up to this point is that it would always come up short of a KO on stage 2 Pokemon. If it's poisoned and has a Binding Mochi attached, that's 300 damage, meaning you aren't one-shotting Dragapult or Charizard. Add in a Gravity Mountain, now those annoying stage 2s have 30 less hit points, putting them within range of Chain Crazed. Tsareena EX meanwhile is a fun one. Instead of playing Gravity Mountain before attacking, you want to drop it after attacking. And maybe not until after you've attacked 2 or 3 times. Because Tsareena's Icicle Soul leaves Pokemon with 30 hit points remaining, you can do the old Panic Mask trickery to stall, then hit them with the Gravity Mountain and potentially take 6 prizes at once. Just remember that Tsareena is a stage 2, so it's also affected by Gravity Mountain. On the flip side, there's Lively Stadium. Now, you might be confused at first. Why would you want to increase the hit points of basic Pokemon in a stage 2 deck? But then you rub your feet along the carpet real quick and the light bulb goes off on your head. It's because Lively Stadium increases the hit points of basic Pokemon by 30. So you use Lively Stadium against Raging Bolt, give them 270 hit points, Icicle Soul for 240, then bump Lively Stadium and take a KO. It does make my brain hurt a little, but when it works, it's hilarious. You can find lists for all the decks in the description. Unless I run out of room, then I'll have to put some in the comments. One list you'll find there is Raging Bolt with the additions of Miraidon and Latias EX because why not? If you have any other suggestions on how to improve older decks with new Surging Sparks cards, let everyone know in the comments.